So yeah, Future Dreams House opened at the end of last year, and the goal of Future Dreams House, it was a vision from our founders who basically didn't want anybody to have to go through breast cancer on their own. So coming into the space, and we'd love to show you around the house, those of you who haven't seen it all yet, is somewhere that doesn't feel medical, it doesn't feel clinical, it's where groups of women can meet up, they can have bra fittings, they can have wig sessions and body confidence sessions, they can have different forms of therapy. Where we are now is a really wonderful yoga and exercise studio. So I can go on that for ages, but Victoria's looking at me, so why not?
No. So I'm also thinking, and you could just come here and chat. I mean, you don't have to come for a thing.
No, you
can just be.
So, thank you, and I'll pass it on.
I'm Kate Mancy, I'm Deputy Chair of Women in Journalism. Just to say, thrilled to have so many people here for our first event of 2022. I can't think of a better place to have it than our official charity for the year, or better guests really. Rosamond Dean is going to be speaking to the wonderful Victoria Derbyshire, so I'll leave it up to you, Rosamond.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you for that introduction. And thank you for having us here at Future Dreams House. It's a really, really beautiful space for this conversation.
Cheers, everybody.
Cheers. So this evening's conversation is all about resilience, which is something that I think a lot of us need this year and last year and the year before.
Yeah, keep going.
So what does resilience mean to you?
It means loads of different things. There are people of a certain age here who will remember a band called Chumbawamba and the inimitable words, the memorable words of, when I get knocked down, I get up again. I realise there are a lot of people who are so young, they've got completely impassive faces, they've got no idea what I'm talking about.
They don't know about the incident at the Brits with
They certainly don't, no.
John Prescott.
It's on YouTube. So it's, you know, when obstacles are put in front of you, when challenges are presented to you, you find a way to get around them. You don't give up. That's what I say. I've got 2 teenage boys. I'm always saying to them, never give up. You know, be persistent. And I think I've done that in my professional life. I've tried to do it in my personal life. And I can give you lots of examples. I don't know if you want them now or as we chat.
Oh, well, give us one now. Give us one now.
Well, in journalism, anybody who works in journalism will know that you get knockbacks the whole bloody time, don't you? You pitch a story. No, it's not really a story. You try and get a guess. I mean, I must have written to George Michael about 12 times. I mean, no, I'm serious. I wrote to him so many times and tweeted him, basically begging for him to do an interview on our programme, and he never ever responded. And sadly, it's never going to happen now. So, that's just one of those things. Obviously, I had my programme cancelled 2 years ago. That was shit. But suddenly we're in the middle of a pandemic, and actually, of course, that story was huge and global, and you have to get on with it. I still had a job, so I was lucky in that respect. So, you just carry on.
Yeah, and I think with this industry, it's really hard to break into as well, so I feel like you need that resilience from the very beginning.
Well, I think it is really competitive to get into journalism. However, certainly compared to when I was starting out, anybody here who wants to be a journalist, there is no excuse for you not to be doing stuff on, I've already said this to some of the young women here, on Instagram, on TikTok. Yeah. You can be doing stories every day if you wanted. Every week you can be writing blogs. In that sense, at least when you go for a job interview, you can present some work, a body of work.
Yeah, exactly. So, since we're here at Future Dreams House, I think we should kick off our conversation talking about breast cancer, which is something we've both had experience with. And you were diagnosed in 2015, yes. I believe.
Yeah.
So, can you talk a bit about how that experience affected you? Obviously, it affects us hugely physically, but emotionally as well.
It was really hard. It was a real blow. I was 46. I know there are younger women here who've been diagnosed. I thought 46 was pretty young in breast cancer terms. I one night I saw that my right breast had dropped and the nipple looked inverted. Next day went for a GP's appointment. You know, within days it was confirmed it was breast cancer. And when the GP said, and when you all, many of you will know this, you go into that room and you're trying to look for clues on their face. And actually the doctor was impassive, and I sat down and then she just said, it is malignant. And I just thought, oh my God, I'm going to die. I mean, I really did. I thought I was going to die. That's it. My luck's run out. But outwardly, I was really calm, and I turned into a bloody journalist and asked about 1 million questions. When can I do this? When can I see this person? What do we do? What's going to be the treatment? All this sort of stuff. And my partner was with me, and he just sort of grabbed my hand. And because I was sort of weirdly calm, outwardly he was. And then we got outside, and obviously I just cried and cried and cried. And then you sort of click into practical mode. Okay, I need to tell work. I need to get someone to pick the kids up. I need to, all that sort of pragmatic stuff. Yeah. You
have said in the past that life looks a bit different on the other side of that particular hurdle. So in what way?
In quite a few different ways for me, in that, you know, it's a cliche, but I felt it. Okay, right, I really know that life is short now, so I really do have to crack on. And actually, I did crack on before I got breast cancer. I was, you know, I did stuff and I was out there and, you know, living, really living. And then afterwards, I was like, okay, well, if that was living, I'm really going to live now. Which, you know, ended up in me saying yes to I'm a Celebrity and the Full Monty on ITV and stuff like that I would never have done before. And smaller things like, you know, I don't try not to sweat the small stuff. And actually, the further I get away from diagnosis, the harder that becomes. And you do, I have found that I'm sort of falling back into those ways where you get hassled about really petty things. And certainly for at least 2 years after my diagnosis, it's like, who gives a shit? Yeah. You know, I'm alive. I don't care about if there's no Wi-Fi. Who cares, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, which is one of the, I mean, it seems strange to talk about positive effects of something like breast cancer, but I think it does have that effect on you. It makes you sweat the small stuff a lot less.
Yeah.
And, you know, that realisation that life is short is really empowering, I think.
Yes. I mean, of course, and that depends on your diagnosis and whether it's treatable and all that sort of stuff. So, I mean, anybody here now, we are the lucky ones. I mean, you know, we really are. Yeah. And so let's, you know, as much as we can, let's try and go for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sorry about all the swearing, I just can't help it, it's just the way I am. One of my resolutions this year was to swear less. And I said that to my boys, and they said, you literally said the C word live on television.
Talking of live television, I wanted to talk about the moment recently when you missed your cue on BBC News because you couldn't get your heels on.
Yes.
So the camera panned down, you weren't there, and you just heard your voice going, oh my God.
Yeah. It was mad. So, I mean, that's like not sweating the small stuff. In the end, like I did go, oh my God. But in the end, it's only television. And I was lucky in that the first story that day was something relatively innocuous, you know, teachers are saying that maths should be brought back in classrooms or whatever it was.
Yeah.
You know, if it had been an awful siege like the synagogue at the weekend or whatever, it would not have been good. But actually, in that sense, I was able to get away with it. But whatever the story was, I just carried on. Sorry about that delay. Good morning. Today, teachers are blah, 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 blah. But honestly, these heels, they're from Topshop. They are so high. And the only reason I wore them that day was because I had long trousers on, which needed turning up. And so I had to wear the high heels in order for the trousers to work. And I'd taken them off just before 9 o'clock. And just before 9 o'clock, we do a run through of the headlines and check that all the pictures are there and the clips and all that sort of stuff. And I furiously rewrite everything because everything's been written like shit. So I'd make it shorter and take some words out. So yeah, I'd taken them off. And then obviously we start, and I'd forgotten I hadn't put my shoes back on. So I have to get up from the desk and go down this, they call it a catwalk. Obviously it's not a catwalk, it's just a little sort of platform. And I was on the platform, honestly, I had nothing to lean on. And these shoes are about 5 inches, and I was trying to get them on and resting there. And I didn't realise my microphone was on, which is why you could hear me going, oh my God, quietly.
So you're lucky you didn't break an ankle.
No, can you imagine?
That would have been worse.
Oh my God, that would have been on YouTube forever. That would have been a nightmare.
So your kind of composure in those sort of situations, have you always had that, or is that something that's happened more recently?
I think I've probably always had that. I think when the shit hits the fan, I'm really good. I'm good in a crisis, I make a plan, confront the awfulness, and like I said when I was at the doctor's that day, it's that sort of weirdly calm thing. Yeah, it's a kind of, okay, I am going to take control of this because it's going to make me feel better when I come up with a plan.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that make sense?
That's why you're so good at live TV.
Maybe. Apart from the C word.
So let's talk about your show. You had your own show, current affairs programme on the BBC for 5 years, I think, was it? Which is amazing because it's still very few women get to front a news programme, even now. How did it all come about? How did that show happen?
It was mad. Honestly, it was absolutely mad. So I worked at 5 Live for a long time. I absolutely loved that job. And 5 Live had moved to Salford in 2011, so I was commuting. My kids were much younger then. And it was a bit tough doing that commute, but I still love that job, so I wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And also I needed to pay the bloody mortgage, and jobs, there aren't that many jobs like that. So anyway, I got offered a job by another broadcaster, and I was thinking, and it was in London, and it was a good job, and I thought, okay, I'm going to do it, great. So I rang my old news editor in London and said, oh my God, Kerry, I've been offered this job, what do you think? He said, oh, that's a really smart move on their part, da 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 da. Then I got a call from the big boss saying, oh, here you've been offered a job, come and have a chat about it. So I went down to London, met him. This is a former editor of The Times, James Harding, who was our director of news for a while. And I said, yeah, so I'm going to do it. And he said, well, I don't want you to leave. I said, well, I want to do it. It's a really good job, and I really want to work for ITV. They're good at stories, they get people, they're kind of sharp-elbowed and ambitious. I said, and I could come back in 5 years or something. And he said, oh, I really don't want you to leave. So I'm like, we were sitting there looking at each other. I said, well, okay then. So, right, well, should we do a TV version of our radio show then? And he looked at me, and I thought, oh God, I've said something really stupid now. And he kept looking at me, and then he said, that's a brilliant idea. And I was like, oh my God, inside.
Amazing.
So this was like on a Tuesday, and I said, wow, okay. I said, so I need to tell the guy at the other place by Friday. I said, there's no way you're going to be able to get it all sorted and make that decision properly and, get your ducks in a row and all that. He said, okay, well, give me till Thursday night. Wow. So yeah, Thursday night he said, we're doing it.
Wow.
Honestly,
fastest
it was
commission.
Mental. That never happens. The BBC never makes decisions like that.
That quickly.
It was amazing. And then the hard work began. I mean, it really did.
Yeah, I can imagine. So when you went into that meeting, was it a kind of spur of the moment suggestion, or did you kind of...
So me and my editor on 5 Live had always thought, God, imagine if we, dreamy, imagine if we could have the kind of conversations we have on the radio on TV, because you never see that. Really gritty or conversations that are where there's a lot of stigma around them, or really direct conversations. So we'd always said, oh God, imagine if we could do that.
Yeah.
And that was the only opportunity where I've gone, should we just do it? And the guy said, yeah, so amazing.
Amazing. And it was, of course, a BAFTA-winning show, and the interviews you had there were incredible. What were your highlights of that show?
I mean, God, the programme was about real people, and the point of it was the task was to reach people who don't think the BBC is for them, BBC News is for them. So it was younger people, people from ethnic minorities, people on low incomes, because the BBC, as we know, and it's not, you know, it's no big deal me saying this, super serves middle class, middle-aged white people. So, I mean, so many, like I have met so many people, I've become friends with quite a lot of them, who were just normal people and suddenly found themselves in the middle of either a big news story or decided that they wanted to talk about something that was a big deal and they wanted to come on our programme to do it because they kind of saw it as a safe space. The one thing that obviously sticks in my mind is talking to the 4 footballers, ex-footballers in their 40s who sat on, I mean, I sort of can't believe it still, they sat on our sofa on daytime TV on a Friday at 9:30 in the morning and talked about the horrific sexual abuse that they had been subjected to by their football coach when they were boys of 9 and 10 and 11.
Yeah.
And even now, and I'm friends with them all, and I've been to their weddings and we were in touch all the time. But even now, I don't think there's any other programme on any channel that would do that. And obviously, we said to the audience, and we're really good at sort of guiding the audience and taking them with us and saying, look, we're going to talk about some really frank conversations. The nature of this conversation could be upsetting, it could be graphic. So if you have children in the room, you know, we were sort of grown up in that sense.
Yeah.
And the audience appreciated that, you know.
Yeah.
So,
of course, and that's why you got those amazing conversations happened, because you kind of gave them space to breathe. And I think you
and we never rushed anyone, and we didn't have to kind of set up fake rows like you get on a lot of news programmes. It was just,
amazing. So the show ended in 2020.
Whenever just before the pandemic.
Just before the pandemic.
Yeah.
So how did that kind of happen, and how did you feel about it then, and how do you feel now looking back on it? After have a drink of wine before you address this.
I actually was reading. So we went on air at 10, and about 9:20, I was just flicking through the Times, which I hadn't read yet that day. And on page 2, it talks about cuts that were coming at the BBC, and it mentioned our programme, and it mentioned various other programmes. And so I texted my line manager and said hi, and photographed it and sent it and said, "This isn't true, is it?" No reply. So go on air at 10. By the time I get off at 11, there's some really inhumane, cold, horrific, corporate bullshit jargon message. So then I texted his boss. Both of these people have now left the BBC, by the way, and said, hi, you know, can you tell me if there's any truth in this? No response. So basically, I went to their secretaries, and said, where are they? And she said, they're all the news board are in that meeting room over there. So I doorstepped them. I just stood there till they finished. And they came out, and I said, oh, just the people I was looking for. So we went into another office, and I sat there waiting for them to say something. And one of them said, oh, you know, this was all supposed to come out next week, because there was a big meeting about cuts the following week. I said, what was all supposed to come out next week? And by this time, this person was shaking.
Oh my God.
Yeah, well, we've arranged it all for, like, what have you arranged? What is it? What is the it?
Yeah.
And then finally, they were forced to say it. Anyway, so that went on for quite a long time, that meeting. And at the end of it, the other person said, and we'd be really grateful if you could keep this to yourself. And I'm like, are you fucking joking me? Like, people on our team are texting me saying, Vic, what's happening? Like, do you think I'm going to, like, to preserve your what? Your grid or something? I mean, it was unbelievable the way that they expected me. Yeah, I mean, yeah. And, yeah, that was that.
So did the show end right away, or did you?
No, that was sort of February, and we had 6 months, and obviously we were, and then again I'm like, okay, the shit's hit the fan. I've got a plan. Let's do this. Let's do that. We'll do amazing stories, even more amazing stories than we've already done. The whole team's like really united, and then I can't remember what day the BBC decided, because of the pandemic, we need to streamline schedules. People are not going to be able to come into the office. So then yeah, that was the end of the programme. And I was just on a normal kind of news shift, reading out loud and doing interviews and what have you.
Yeah, yeah.
Which because it was the pandemic, actually it was you know, obviously there was loads going on. So you wanted to be on air at that time. Of course you did. You know, any journalist wanted to be working in that. Yeah, so that's that.
Yeah. So how do you feel looking back on it now?
I feel like I've got to stop going on about it. I'm only talking about it because you asked me. Do you know what I mean? I feel really sad about it.
Yeah.
I feel really sad for our team. We had so much kind of expertise and we've all just sort of been scattered, you know. Quite a few people left, left the BBC. I love the fact that I meet people, you know, who work behind the counter at M&S at Waterloo and say, oh my God, I still really miss your programme.
Yeah.
And I really like that. We did some great stories and that's that.
Yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
It's a bummer.
It's
for me.
Yeah, for all of us, I would say. So tell me about your time at 5 Live. So that was what you did before your show, and that was, you were there for 15?
Long time, yeah.
16 years?
So I did the breakfast show to begin with, co-presenting with Julie Morica, and then I moved to the mid-morning programme, and I love radio. I love TV. I love radio. I love the kind of conversations you can have on radio. I love the informality, and that's what we kind of wanted. We brought that to TV, I think.
Yeah.
I love the listeners. Oh my God. I mean, you know, talk about people with expertise and common sense and compassion. Like whatever the story was, we were the mid-morning programme was a sort of phone-in programme, but it wasn't, we want your views on Brexit. It was, okay, there's a story about nurses or midwives. There's a story about midwives, right? If you're a midwife, tell us what it's like when you da-da-da. And of course, we'd get midwives calling us. So really kind of educating the rest of us about what was going on. The most incredible caller, we were talking about alcoholism one day and whether labels on bottles of spirits should be, you know, more harsh or whatever, more brutal. And a woman rang who was an alcoholic. She told us she was going to rehab that day and she was slightly slurring her words. And then I heard a can open and I could hear what I thought was alcohol being poured into a glass. And of course with radio, you listen really hard. And obviously I realised she was in a really vulnerable position. And I said, you know, is it okay to ask you, are you having a drink now? And she was. It was a can of Guinness. And she educated all of us because she did go into rehab. And after a year, obviously I was trying to get in touch with her. She emailed me. She said, I'm out of rehab. I've done it. So she came back on the programme. She sort of became a friend of the programme. And what she taught us, not just me and the team, but the listeners, was that you can be a middle-class professional. She was an anaesthetist. And you can be an alcoholic, and you can function, and you can have a kid and a partner, and no one really knows.
Yeah.
I'm really sad to say that she died. She relapsed, and what I also learned was that you can be off booze for a very, very long time when you've drunk loads of it over many years, and if you even just have a bit, it can just shut your organs down. And she died. And so we did a whole programme on 5 Live in tribute to her, and you know, we'd had over the years callers, like, mostly women I have to say, rung in and said, when I heard Rachel talking, I thought, oh my God, that's me.
Wow.
I need to get help, you know.
Yeah.
She was, So what I'd learned from 5 Live is listeners are amazing and they are expert.
Yeah.
And it really pisses me off when people have a really sort of derisory attitude towards phone-in programmes. Because actually, in my experience, people know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah.
Yeah, people are there living their lives.
Yeah,
they're on
absolutely.
the ground experiencing
Totally,
stuff.
totally. And again, on the radio, we did lots of kind of gritty stuff. We did a 2-hour OB, outside broadcast, from an abortion clinic. And there was a big hoo-ha in the run-up to it, as you might imagine, and I think the Daily Mail did a, 5 Live is going to be promoting abortion or glorifying abortion, whatever. And what we used to do it in various places around Britain, where you shine a light on an area where we all know there are abortion clinics or animal testing laboratories. We don't actually know what goes on inside. So we did a really factual, okay, this is what happens if you are going for an abortion. This is what happens at reception. And then you go here and you talk to a medic, and then you talk to a counsellor, and then you go into the area where the procedure is carried out. And it was so factual, it was untrue. And we had all these complaints in the run-up to it, and after the programme, not one complaint.
Wow.
And people just said, we appreciate you telling us what actually happens.
Yeah. And I think that's what journalism is all about, really. It's about people.
Yeah.
And kind of, I think your empathy when talking to people makes them really open up, which I think is so important.
Yeah.
And talking of opening up, when you went on I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here, which you mentioned earlier, you talked about your breast cancer diagnosis on there, which had an incredible impact. Can you just tell us a bit about that?
I mean, that was, again, also mad, because when you're in there, you have no idea what's going on outside. You don't know what bits of TV they're using. You don't know how you're coming across. You're not even thinking of that, to be honest. Although, actually, to be honest, for the first few days, I did feel a bit out of control. It's like, whoa, I don't know what's going on. I don't know these people. I don't get it, And then you just think, oh, fuck it, let's have a good time, Anyway, so Jess was one of the women in there, former EastEnders actor. Has anyone watched The Girl Before recently? She was in that. Oh my God, she was brilliant, wasn't she? Anyway, it's on iPlayer if you want to catch up. So she was asking me about it in the bathroom area. You had to, if you wanted a shower, someone had to pump the water, so you were always in the bathroom with someone else, so it was quite sociable in the end, in the bathroom. And she was asking me how I discovered it, and she was really asking really good, basic questions. And said, God, I always thought it was a lump. I always thought if you have breast cancer, all you're looking for is a lump.
Yeah.
So we had a conversation about that. And she said, I've never met anyone who's had breast cancer. I didn't know any of this. Why aren't we taught about this in schools? And obviously, it was only when we both came out that I had loads of messages on Instagram saying, I didn't know that as well. Thank you for telling us that. I've checked. I've been to the docs. Quite a few people had found something, been to the doctors. Fine, it's nothing, as it is in most people's cases. One woman had been, and unfortunately she was diagnosed with breast cancer, and randomly she messaged me on Instagram, and this is a sad story. She messaged me on Instagram and she said, I've just seen you in the waiting room at Ashford and St Peter's Hospital, which is where I was treated. I was waiting there to see the consultant. I only got checked out because I watched you on I'm a Celeb. I wish I'd said hello. I was like, oh my God, why didn't you say hello? She said, anyway, it's been caught early, etc., etc. So I messaged her in January, how are you doing? Yeah, fine, seems to be going fine. Messaged her in February. I'm a bit angry, actually. It turns out they didn't catch it early, and actually it spread, and it's not good. And I was like, oh my God. Messaged her again a few weeks later, no reply. Eventually I got a reply from her husband saying she died. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And yeah, and that's, that's why we do what we do. That's why we talk about breast cancer. That's why you write about it. That's why we do this podcast. That's why we talk about it. I'm a Celebrity,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
That was a shocker. I mean, that's a shocker for me, but bloody hell, she had 2 young kids and her husband. I mean, anyway, I messaged again at Christmas. I said it's going to be really tough. And actually he said, there's nothing better than 2 little kids on Christmas morning to just totally distract you,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Oh, God. Sorry.
I know, I'm sorry.
So when you were younger, you wanted to be a lawyer, I read.
Yes.
I read.
Yeah.
So why?
To be honest, my mum wanted me to be a lawyer.
Oh, okay.
She used to say things like, "Oh, you're really good at arguing. Why don't you be a lawyer?" So when you're about 13, you think, "Yeah, I want to be a lawyer. I'm really good at arguing." And I was quite good at arguing because I had to be because of my environment, which I think we'll talk about at some point. And then I don't know why, I just sort of went off that a bit. I didn't really think about it. I didn't really think about anything much until I got to university, and that's when I started to write for the university newspaper. And I thought, oh, I quite like this. You know, I was only doing like reviews of something that's on at the cinema or something that was on at the Everyman Theatre. And then I thought, I quite like doing this, but I don't think I'm very good at writing. So is there another way I can do this journalism? You know, like there's no mobile phones then, there's no internet. It's not like you could just go, oh, I want to be a broadcast journalist. I didn't even know that broadcast journalism was a thing, you know. So yeah, and then I started doing a bit of stuff for the Toxteth community radio station, and I quite liked writing stuff and then reading it out. So, you know, just went from there.
Yeah, amazing. So you mentioned there the challenging environment that you had at home, and you did grow up, I don't know if people have read before that you grew up in an environment of domestic abuse.
Yes.
So how did that experience growing up kind of impact you?
I think because I was the eldest of three, my father was violent regularly. My mum is amazing and really, you know, loved us and nurtured us. And I read somewhere that as long as you've got one adult loving you, actually you'll be all right. It doesn't matter if it's a mum or a dad or an auntie, whatever, you know. So I think because I was the eldest, I felt that I needed to protect my younger brother and sister as much as I could, and as much as I could protect my mum. That was quite hard, because often there would be rows late in the night, and we'd be woken up by the noise. And I always remember me and my brother and sister used to sit on the top of the stairs listening, and we you know, when you're young, you sort of have these naive things. It's like, if we stay awake, my mum's going to be all right. Do you know what I mean? It's just that, I don't know how that made sense, but it did at the time. And sometimes we would have to go down and intervene and say, stop it, and why are you doing this, and what have you. So I don't know if that experience made me a strong person, or if it was actually the love of my mum. Despite all that shit, she was happy and optimistic, and, you know, did all the stuff that you do with kids. We went to gymnastics and karate and ballet and all that stuff. She did all that. Basically, she was a single parent. So I don't know if it's because of that love, or partly because of the difficult environment that has made me quite a strong person. I don't really want to obviously give him credit for that. I'd like to give my mum credit for that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if anyone's taught you resilience, I guess it's your mum.
Yeah, she's determined. She's, you know, she married a shit man, but if she hadn't, me and my brother and my sister wouldn't be here. So we always rationalise it like that. Yeah, she's, as I said, really optimistic, tries to see the positive, is brilliant at throwing a party. I've definitely inherited that from her. She was very good at bringing the wider family together, you know, the aunties, the grandmas, all the women, the sisters. Yeah. And I feel like I've sort of, my mum is around. She's, you know, we see her loads. She lives in Bolton. We live down here, but she's just about to move down. That's amazing. And I feel like I've sort of taken that on. Like, everybody gathers at our house now. Yeah. The cousins, the sisters, the aunties, the nephews, the nieces, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, so how do you feel you're passing on the kind of values and what you learnt from her, passing on to your own kids?
I mean, I am much more open than we were in my house growing up. I felt like there were a lot of secrets, and, you know, we had to get out of the way when he came home, because it would always be a horrific atmosphere, so we'd scatter upstairs to our bedroom. So, and we never talked about anything. I am really open, and you know, I talk to my boys a lot about stuff, and I obviously encourage them if they want to talk about anything. We openly say, you know, how's your mental health? Like, it's just a normal conversation, and they'll go, yeah, 7 out of 10 actually. Yeah. You know, if I score a goal on Sunday, it'll be 9 out of 10. You know, stuff like. But it's just really open. When I was in I'm a Celeb, my boys were looking after my social media. Oliver, who's the older one, was doing Twitter. Joe was doing my Instagram.
Amazing.
Honestly, I came out, and the first thing the ITV exec said to me was, "You are going to be so proud of them. They hooked up with Refuge to use my social media to do stuff. They hooked up with Macmillan Not Future Dreams. Why didn't that happen, Sam?
I did have lots of banter with your son.
Did you? Okay, cool. And I was like, oh my God, they just did this. And I knew that Mark was going to be sort of vaguely in the background, just making sure they didn't say anything stupid, but they didn't, and they never were going to, and I really felt so proud of them for that. So kind of by osmosis, they've taken all that on.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I've schooled them in, domestic abuse. I've obviously talked about my own father and, what it was like when I was growing up compared to them growing up, and they've taken it on.
Amazing.
Yeah.
People don't think of teenage boys as being particularly open
I
and
know,
able to talk about their feelings.
Honestly, I'm pleased that they feel able to do that,
Yeah.
And I, as I said earlier, I always say to them, never give up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good message.
Yeah.
So your campaigning work for domestic abuse charities like Refuge and obviously with Future Dreams, is that something that's become more important to you over time?
Yeah, I think so. I think certainly I feel the diagnosis, I was always going to do stuff regarding breast cancer. It just was a no-brainer. It's like, oh my God, I've got to talk about this because I didn't know what a mastectomy was. I didn't know what chemo was, so maybe other people don't. But certainly I've got more confident about being able to talk about stuff that's not particularly pleasant. And after lockdown, I did a panorama about domestic abuse in lockdown, and I talked about my own experiences, not very much, but because mainly it was a sort of editorial reason. I wanted the women that I was interviewing to know that I knew what they were talking about.
Yeah.
And as a result, they felt they could trust me more. I just feel I've got more confident with age, basically.
Yeah. I think that happens to all of us. The experience and hurdles. And now I read in an interview you did in The Guardian where you mentioned that you keep a diary.
I do.
Do you write in it every day?
Sometimes I'll get to the end of the week and just fill it in that way.
Do it, yeah. How long have you been keeping it?
Since I was 9.
Wow.
I've missed 1 year, which was 2012, and I'm annoyed because I covered the London Olympics that year and it was amazing. I thought I'd give myself a year off, just and I hated it. So I've got a year missing, but basically I've got all these diaries in my wardrobe.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So are there any plans to publish them?
I don't think so because I can't be asked to write about my life. I'd rather just be living it rather than writing about stuff that happened years ago,
Yeah.
It just feels quite... what I do is I reference, my oldest son is really into 80s music, which I'm really pleased about because I grew up in the 80s and I love 80s music. And so I say, oh my God, I saw Wham! He's like, no, did you? So then I'll go to 1986 and there's my ticket for Wham! At the Manchester Apollo, and he's really impressed,
Amazing.
So it's just a sort of reference thing like that.
Yeah.
Although actually I wrote a book after my breast cancer treatment and that really helped me, and that was kind of based on my diaries. But no, I can't be asked.
Well, that's a shame. I think we would all like to read them.
Yes, is the correct thing to say, Rosalind.
No, I've not been keeping track of time, but I think now we're going to open up to questions from the floor. If anybody has any questions for Victoria.
Hi. I hope it's not too personal of a question, but I was wondering how you deal with little failures in your career especially. So you mentioned in the beginning that we all get pitches sent back to us, we all get little tiny things. What do you do, not not necessarily in a professional level of messaging another editor or whatever, but just how do you deal with
Try not to take it personally. I know that's quite hard. But honestly, I would rewrite it slightly, or get a better top line, or find some more stats to make it stronger, and then repitch it. Or find another editor or another program or another publication. Or just put it on your socials. And before you know it, they'll all be picking it up, Yeah. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good advice. I think so many publications pick things up from people's socials.
Yeah. Totally.
Another one over here.
So you talk about your mother being inspiring. Are there any public figures who you find particularly inspiring or charismatic, or who you've wanted to be when you were growing up?
Not really. Sorry. I know that's so boring. I know it's such a disappointing answer. It reminds me of when people say, so what did you learn about yourself from I'm a Celeb? I'm like, nothing really. Sorry. I used to listen to, does anybody remember Nick Clark on Radio 4? A lot of young people won't. But he was a brilliant interviewer. He was super, super polite and courteous the whole time, but utterly forensic. And he was sort of the person that I really wanted to be. Obviously, I really like watching Jeremy Paxman when he was in his pomp, you know. Yeah, that's probably it. It's annoying that I haven't got... I mean, there are some amazing women interviewers now and journalists now. Obviously, Pippa Creer at The Mirror is doing the most unbelievable job. It's sensational. But also, you know, Laura Koonsberg at the BBC, Beth Rigby, and they all get so much shit. I mean, the abuse they get is unbelievable.
On Twitter.
Oh my God,
horrific.
It's gross. So yeah, and actually, I really admire Kay Burley because she's a survivor.
Yeah.
And there are not many women still doing it and still doing it brilliantly every single day at her age.
Yeah.
And she's been doing it for what, 30 years?
Yeah.
40 years?
Long time.
Yeah.
Did you have any mentors when you were kind of coming up in journalism?
Not really. I mean, when I got into journalism, mentoring wasn't really a thing. Now it really is. And I mentor loads of young women, which I love doing. But it wasn't, I don't think people had really sussed that,
No.
you know, was an important thing when I was, you know, whenever it was, late 90s.
Yeah, yeah. Nobody in those days would have kind of contacted someone and said, oh, can you help me out?
No.
So, any more questions? One over here at the back.
There was a great moment, Victoria, when you said, I've been living really, you know, my best life, but then you had to kind of ramp it up again. I'm just wondering what happened. How do you pick yourself up after a cancer diagnosis, after your show's been cancelled? How do you just, you know, gather that inner strength and just keep going forwards?
First, I go around to my friend Kathy's house and open the wine and dance around the kitchen till 2 o'clock in the morning to Mr. Brightside and Sweet Caroline, and then wake up the next morning and think, oh my God, what am I going to do? I mean, I don't know. You get drunk with your friends. My friends are like my therapist. My husband's like my therapist. You talk and talk and talk. You try and come up with a plan of action to, you know, save your programme. You know, there was a petition. There was loads of, you know, people saying nice things. In the end, in the middle of a pandemic, it's not going to work. I don't know. You just have to keep going. What else can you do? You know, you have no choice in that respect. In terms of breast cancer, I think, certainly for me, once I knew it was treatable, I was like, oh my God, I can so do treatment. And obviously, bits were really, really hard, and losing your hair is shit. But actually, compared to the alternative, I felt it was doable.
Have you had any actual therapy? Or is
Real
it
therapy?
Real
No.
therapy from a proper
Unless
therapist?
you include Kathy and my husband. No, I haven't. No, I haven't. No.
You never felt you needed to?
No, because I just chat to my friends and get drunk. And also, I feel my husband's had therapy. He's had depression, and that helped him manage it. For me, it feels like you're looking backwards the whole time, and it's a bit like why I won't use my diary to write a book. I can't be able to look backwards, you know.
Yeah.
There's no time really. So yeah.
Look forwards all the way.
Yeah.
Any more questions? One here.
Can I just ask, do you think you were more resilient prior to having cancer or more resilient now? Because I think I am less resilient now.
Do you?
I used to be really, kind of good, and now I'm a bit like,
Why? Why do you think that?
I don't know, I think it just kind of like, curveballed me a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not sure I'm as good as I used to be, and I'm not as tough as I used to be, and I'm not as strong as I used to be. And I wonder if you felt that, or whether you felt it before you were...
Honestly, I think by the end of it, I was I felt absolutely invincible.
Yeah.
I really did.
But did that get worse? Did that weigh away?
No.
No, right, so you're still invincible.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's delusional. It's totally delusional. But yeah, I just thought, oh my God, I've got through that, and I'm still here.
I felt that for a while, and then it kind of like it fell away quite sharply. So
Really?
Like, oh,
Yeah,
invincible
okay, that's
then.
interesting. And I can see that Abby's nodding alongside
These
you.
ladies are nodding with me.
Yeah.
It just kind of like waned away, and it's like, oh. But that's a good thing. Resilience is a tricky thing.
We need to do a podcast episode about that.
Yeah.
Abby, Jess has put her hand up a few times, so go ahead, Jess.
Mine was sort of similar to both the last two questions, but I did have two. But one was also, if you've ever been at the point where you've had real blows, but you kind of, when you resilience, you kind of feel like you've got some reserves. When you've lost your reserves, how do you kind of stay positive and stay feel like you've got a bit of strength inside you?
I mean, that is really hard. I think I probably, in those kind of really low moments, I just relied on my close friends and my family and my husband. It was like, I can't get out of bed. I feel like shit. I look like shit. I hate myself. And then I felt bad because I'm still alive, so I should be grateful for this, And for me, that's when those lot came together and just either made me laugh or, took me on a dog walk or bought me some flowers or turned up with a moussaka on the doorstep. It's just, and those little things and you go, oh, there's a moussaka on the doorstep. Oh, maybe it will be all right then. Do you know what I mean? It feels irrational to say that, but it just gives you that glimmer. And it's random. There's no right answer to that question, Jess. There really isn't.
My other one was maybe a bit lighter, but you said, cancer has stopped you sweating small stuff. And has there ever been a point, which is a good thing, I think, generally, but has there ever been a point where that's a problem? And other people around you still sweat the small stuff. And
So you see, right, so when I say that, I don't want you to get the wrong impression. So I still, I read my briefs, I do my research, that small stuff is really important in terms of my job.
Different wavelength, other people are panicking about something maybe you really shouldn't panic about.
Yeah, I mean, it's a kind of role reversal because I used to be a control freak about everything, and obviously I still am to a certain extent. Like if I did a party for my mum this summer, delayed 80th, and I want the flowers to be right, and I want the chairs to be right, and I want the cutlery to be gold, and all that crap, because it's my mum's 80th, and we've delayed it by a year. So that small stuff matters to me, but I suppose I mean I don't know what I mean. Rosamond, help me out. Do you know what I mean? What do I mean? I mean if you're in a traffic jam and someone's being an arsehole in front of you, blow them a kiss, it's fine. Yeah. I suppose it's that really, really small stuff, Does that help or not?
Yeah, but I also think it almost helps in terms of work, because I think if you overthink stuff, or you get anxious, or you write and rewrite an email because you want it to be just right, then I think there's less of that. There's less faffing now.
Yeah.
It's more like, just send it and deal with whatever the response
that's
is.
Fair.
And it actually makes you better at your job, I think, because you get more shit done. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
You know what's important.
Yeah. Abby, go on.
You were talking about your show and how you dealt with lots of subjects that had stigma attached to them, and I'm just wondering, what do you think kind of now in 2022, what should we be talking about more publicly, and maybe as women, or
Oh, well, let's open this out to the floor. What a great question. Okay, right, come on, I'm not answering this on my own. So what do we not talk about? Now, do you not think every fucker's talking about the menopause, aren't they? No offence. Davina McCall's doing programmes.
Only very recently, though.
That's true. Fiona Phillips has been writing really a lot about it. She's done an interview today, I think, in the Mirror, and she wrote in her column, it's really affected her. I mean, obviously there's a group of young women in here, the what? I think we mentioned it earlier, Abby, you know, a menopause that is induced by chemotherapy, that is a good conversation to have. So there are some young women here, so what should we be talking about?
Freezing eggs.
Really? Oh my God, Sophie. Go on.
Well, only because I'm going to do it this month, and it's not cancer related.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, there is so much attached to people of women of a certain age, and the pressure that you feel to not even know if you want children or not.
Yeah.
And then I suppose you've got to make these kind of big decisions about doing that to kind of give yourself a little bit of, and it's, you know, it's the anxiety, you know,
Wow.
I think you have, your whole life is planned out until, you know, you finish uni, let's say. And in your 20s, you just enjoy and there's no real plan. Then you get to your 30s, you're like, well, actually, there's kind of got to be a plan again, because there is a time constraint. And I think there's not really enough about that, and there's no, it is massively taboo.
Yeah.
And I think people need more support around it, because it's such a massive decision.
Wow.
You're not quite sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel a programme coming on, Sophie. That is, you're right though. You're absolutely right. Wow, okay.
That's a good one.
Go on.
I was just off the back of that, so I'm 20, I have endometriosis, I'm about to go on treatment that will induce menopause.
Oh my God.
And there's a lot of talk in communities I'm in online about how the NHS should fund egg freezing people with endometriosis, because it can affect it by like 50%.
Yeah.
So those conversations,
Yeah.
I think that this isn't something that just affects people at 30.
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
that.
Wow.
Yeah, I think lots of areas like endometriosis are really under-researched
Yes.
because things affecting women have been under-researched for so long,
Yeah.
underfunded in terms
Yes.
of research.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Another programme.
Yeah. Go on, Amanda.
I would say to anyone, have the self-confidence to self-educate yourself, and if you're not happy about something, advocate, question, you know, if it doesn't feel right in your gut, if you're seeing a doctor and you change, don't feel that you've got to do as you're told.
Yeah.
And I think I've really learned that from my own experience with breast cancer, talking to other patients. Trust your gut and self-advocate, and like, I don't want to repeat myself, but educate yourself. You have choices, you know, and just, arm yourself.
Self-advocate, does that mean like, what does that mean?
Self-advocate. So I do a lot of support work with breast cancer patients. So I've spoken to girls that have been to see a doctor with a lump, and they just said, oh, it's probably a cyst, go away, you know, if it doesn't go down, go away, come back and see me in a month. I say to those girls, no, don't leave that surgery. Go back to the reception, say, I didn't get the answer I wanted, can I see a different GP?
Yeah.
Don't just take what they say.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Don't be one of these people down the line that says, I felt in my gut there was something, but I didn't, but they told me.
I didn't push it, yeah.
Just, you know, and I'm not saying that you're always right, but if you feel something, have the self-confidence to go with your gut feeling.
Yeah.
Just, you know, just push it forward for yourself. And then you know you've done that, whatever the outcome is. Yeah.
Cool.
Good advice.
Talking about courage. Sorry, I had a question I wanted to ask, because just about the boldness and the courage, because I had breast cancer, I think, the year before you, and I didn't tell anybody, and I've worked in journalism and PR and so forth, and then suddenly I saw you on television doing kind of pieces to camera with scarf on your head, saying, here I am about to have chemo, and they're going to put it in my arm, and that was quite huge, because I didn't talk about it or tell people I was working with or anything. I just thought, well, I'll sail through and no one will notice. Of course they did, because, you know, you're falling apart.
Yeah.
But I didn't explain till afterwards. But I thought it was very brave, but it must have been a kind of immediate decision of yours, because you filmed yourself right from the beginning of your journey.
Do you know what? It wasn't right from the beginning. It was only after I knew it was treatable. And so it was from the mastectomy onwards. And it was actually because I thought, I'm a journalist, I don't want to be just feeling like a cancer patient, so, you know, I've got a TV programme, this is what we do. It was really it was like a professional thing in a way. I'll just be really factual, as though I'm doing a story, and blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, not realising what was to come with chemo and all the rest of it. And then, of course, I want to be honest about the lows as well as the highs. So, yeah.
Yeah. And it goes back to what you were saying about knowing that you have options and knowing there are lots of different types of breast cancer and there are lots of different ways to treat it, and it's about educating yourself and others, and sharing information. I think we've probably only got time for one more question.
Go on, Jess. Jess is hogging,
not
but it's
to put the
fine.
pressure on.
It's fine.
Oh God, I don't want to end it so morbid.
Go on.
But no, just on sort of a thing that we don't talk about. And so I've had breast cancer recently, and my prognosis is good, and that's great. But it does, like you said, it comes out of the blue. I was 36 when I was diagnosed, and didn't expect it in the slightest. And it makes you confront things that you had no idea you'd have to confront at that time. And death, basically, is something we don't talk about. And you don't think that maybe, women, it doesn't just have to be breast cancer, but things come out of the blue in your 20s, 30s, any age, and it's such a taboo. And I find myself, now having to confront it, and I don't know where to go to sort of think, have any kind of...
Like, who are you going to have those conversations with?
No, I'm not religious. I don't go to a church or anything. So I just think it's something we don't talk about. My sister-in-law is a palliative care doctor.
Right.
And she's the only person I've got who really can have an open conversation about this, and who kind of you can talk to about things and fears, and just to get your head around it, because it's the biggest thing, and you don't, it's so hard to get your head around it when you have to.
You're right, we don't talk about it. There aren't enough people who want to talk about it. There aren't enough people who want to listen to someone who perhaps wants to talk about it.
I think it would take away some of the...
You're right. It wouldn't.
Fear,
I mean, it wouldn't normalise it, but it would help to normalise it a bit, wouldn't it?
It's so hard to get your head around.
Yeah.
When you're doing it on your own.
Yeah.
And I know there is support out there, but it's not a something that's in a kind of main.
No, it's not mainstream. You're right. No. But we're all here, Jess.
Sorry, I don't think of it all the time. It does, kind of pops up.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
Totally.
I recently read Oliver Burkeman's book, 4,000 Weeks. Have you heard of this?
No.
So I think 4,000 weeks is the average lifespan, and it's basically a book all about death, but it's about how being aware of death and thinking about death can actually make your life better. So it's ultimately quite a positive book.
Positive ways to
So he's kind of saying a diagnosis or a bereavement or anything that puts you in close proximity to death can ultimately be galvanising if you kind of think about it in the right way. Not always easy.
No. This is an open, it's good, it's a safe space, we can say anything, I like it, it's good.
I don't know how much of a hard out we have.
What time is it now?
It's just gone 8, it's after 8.
Okay, it's time for a drink, man.
It's time for a drink. On that note.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.